Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Hope you're all enjoying your day. It's the last day for DevReach, but we have some things coming up tomorrow. Our team is still going to be here. We have a big release coming up. But let's talk dotnet MAUI and all the things that we can do. This is me. I'm Sam. I am out of Pennsylvania. I'm a dev advocate for our developer tools, which is a lot of .NET and JavaScript and reporting and testing and production and productivity and all the things. That's pretty much me anywhere online. So if you need the source code for anything I'm showing you, that's where you can look me up. And I will try to keep things to a minimum. I want to make sure that we are up to about the same level at dotnet MAUI. I want to show you as many things as I can. Maybe not all of it is going to apply. Some of it might look a little hackish, but I want to show you the possibilities of what dotnet MAUI, what modern .NET can do. How many of you have any experience or played around with dotnet MAUI? Anything? Okay, some of you. That's very, very good. And then how many of you do any type of web development? Oh, that's very good. So, .NET and dotnet MAUI, these are all, native and mobile stuff and .NET and desktop. But I actually want to talk about some of the other side of this story, which is, bringing in some web stuff to desktop and mobile and how we can, share code better. So how about I do like another 5-7 minutes of, slides, and then we'll try to show you as many things as I can. But first up, we are hopefully coming out of a pandemic mode. But I hope you and yours are well and you're well taken care of. We are all trying to be as productive as we can. So let's be kind to each other and to ourselves. We are sitting on .NET. As we know today, it's a very unified stack, and it's taken Microsoft quite a bit of time to get there. But all of the things that we had, the different runtimes for .NET, the base class libraries, they're all now combined into one .NET 6. This picture is not going to change much with .NET 7 and .NET 8. It's going to continue being that unified stack. The tools of our trade, have come a long way. So let's talk about a couple of different things. And you can build a variety of apps with .NET. You can do cloud, you can do IoT, you can do games. But we're going to focus on three fundamental things that most enterprises care about. It's web, desktop, and mobile. How do we go about building those apps now, and how can these worlds kind of come together, hopefully with dotnet MAUI. Let's talk about mobile first, all right? And this is interesting. I say 2023 because like my local grocery store has started putting out Christmas trees and Halloween stuff, so the year is kind of done. But if you're starting a mobile app now, you're releasing it next year. So that's kind of where I'm heading. This is my 1-minute spiel on all the different ways in which you can target mobile. It doesn't need to be a mobile app, but these are all the general ways. I might be missing some, but the point is if you have to go native, iOS, Android, Windows, kind of different platforms, and you're closest to the metal, great user experience, but it's expensive because you're maintaining 3 different code bases towards one app, which is hard for individuals, hard for enterprises. So hopefully in this day and age, you're looking at a cross-platform story, and you have plenty of choices. If you are doing anything web, keep doing web stuff. Keep doing JavaScript because your tools have come a long way. You can make things very mobile friendly, so it's a nicer citizen on a mobile device. There are lots of frameworks to help you out. There's all the SPA frameworks, Bootstrap, Kenda UI, they all try to help you out. You can take that to a next level with PWAs, which is progressive web apps. It is still a web app, but it's a very good citizen on a mobile device. You can do service workers, JavaScript service workers on the back. You can fetch data. You can do push notifications. It feels like a native app, but there are some limitations because it's still a web app. You're using the web as a distribution medium. You're not in the stores. So how do you get in the app stores? Well, that's where you kind of look into some of the cross-compile and the JavaScript native stories. Again, if you're doing JavaScript, you have NativeScript, React Native, and all the other tools. So that'll translate your JavaScript into a native app. It's a good story. But if you want to do .NET or some of the higher level languages, then you're looking at some cross-compiled solutions. Xamarin has been around. We're talking about .NET MAUI, Flutter, Uno, Avalonia. They all kind of fit into this pattern. It's some form of abstracted markup and then shared code is what we're looking at. So this is where we started back in 2011, 12. This was the early days of Xamarin or Mono iOS, Mono Touch. We started out writing some shared C#, which was great because our business logic is shared, but we are building those platform heads individually. So which needed us to know how to build for iOS or Android. So it was a good start, but we could do better. And then came along Xamarin Forms. I think back in 2014, I want to say. It started out as a prototyping thing, but became rather popular with a niche audience. So now we have a shared UI stack. So that lets us write almost 95% of our stuff in shared UI, which is C# or XAML. And then you still have the purple and the green, blue, because if you wanted to, you can get down to native land and do native stuff. So this is the present reality as of the last 7 to 8 years. But there are some pain points in this reality. I mean, we have, as a company and as myself, like I have shipped apps to the app stores, and big complex apps get big complex code bases, and it becomes really hard to manage. So there are some definite pain points, and that's what is being tried. I mean, they're trying to address some of the pain points with what's coming next, and that is .NET MAUI. MAUI stands for Multi-Platform App UI. The P is silent because MPAUI doesn't sound very nice compared to MAUI, right? So this has been cooking for 2.5 years. It's out. The MAUI team, they were here, but I think they're doing like a team meeting. But David, Maddie, and those folks, they're responsible for some of the tooling and some of the platform. Great set of folks. They have been working on this, and it's out. The runtime is out as of May. The tooling, it's done for Visual Studio on Windows. Visual Studio on Mac is kind of catching up a little bit. But these are some of my favorite features that kind of take some of the pain out of Xamarin development. It is truly cross-platform. It is meant for mobile, so they're opening it up, but it's also for desktop. So they started with a mobile-first mindset, but now it's very much welcome on desktop. So this has kind of become the next generation cross-platform .NET strategy. This is big. The single project experience is big because compared to Xamarin Forms, where everything is a separate project and your dependencies and everything live on separate folders and separate projects, now it's just a single solution. So it's a true shared solution, and resources are shared across platforms. The platform API access is really nice. It's all baked in. So if you needed to get hold of camera, geolocation, accelerometer, all the things on every mobile device, you can very easily. From C#, from Blazor, which we'll talk about, and from JavaScript as well. The architecture of how the rendered things is different. So everything is kind of set up nicely for you to be successful. And the ecosystem is growing. I'll mention a little bit about how we can help with UI. We have a full suite of UI called Telerik UI for .NET MAUI. That's mobile. Any questions so far? That's just my quick spiel on how you build for mobile. Let's talk about desktop, right? Now, based on who you talk to, if you're old like me, this is liberating, or this is very scary. Like, why do I have so many options as to how I can build my Windows app? Because it's 20 plus years of desktop development that we're sitting on, so it's a lot of stuff. The top 4 here are just hardcore, straight-up Windows, and you can still do them happily. Don't let anybody tell you WinForms or WPF is dying, because they're not. They run on .NET 6. They run on .NET 7 already, and 8, so you're fine. You can slowly start modernizing your stack if you wanted to. If you want to do web stuff, you still can. PWAs, a lot of apps in the Microsoft Store are PWAs. Electron, anyone know about Electron? It is battle tested. It works very, very well. I'll show you like VS Code and Figma and Slack. Teams has now become a native client, but it works. It clearly works, but it might be a little heavy-handed for what you're trying to do. So that's where .NET MAUI comes in. The last 2 here are enabled because of .NET MAUI, because of Blazor. So we'll talk a lot more about that. Mac and Linux, similar stories for Mac, and for all 3 of you who use Linux as your desktop, more power to you, you're hardcore, but you can reach Linux. You actually cannot reach Linux officially with .NET MAUI, because it's, they have to cater to the masses first, so it's still community and might eventually be supported, but early days of .NET MAUI as well. So lots and lots of choices of how we build for desktop. But ideally, we want to share code between mobile and desktop. Let's talk about web. Right? Lots of ways in which you can build your web apps. .NET, JavaScript, you do you, whatever works for you. This is ASP.NET as it stands right now. We have come from ASP.NET Classic to Core to just straight up ASP.NET, and then this is very, very good. It's open source, it's super fast, everything is good, except if you think about the ASP.NET stack, it's mostly a server-side thing. And I mean, we are old, and some of the things come back in cycles. Let's do everything server-side. No, let's do everything client-side. And now let's do a mix of the two. ASP.NET has been good, but it started out as a server-side tech. And prior to Blazor, .NET developers did not have a way of doing client-side apps. So that's where everyone leaned towards JavaScript. That's where you had Angular, React, and Vue, and everything come in. And .NET and APIs got relegated towards the back, which wasn't the happiest thing. So out comes, I'll actually come back to this, but out comes Blazor, which is very exciting because I actually remember the first time we saw Blazor. It was like 3-4 years back. Steve Sanderson, who's one of the engineers on the ASP.NET team, he was showing it off, and he just blew everybody's minds that you could do C# on the client side. So Blazor is a new rendering engine. Blazor is a new web platform that can be entirely server-side over a little SignalR real-time bridge, or through the beauty of WebAssembly, which is WASM, run entirely client-side. So you can ship .NET DLLs and run them all client-side, just the way JavaScript runs client-side. So Blazor has been very, very exciting. And Blazor is actually very suitable for making it into a PWA. So it can run on mobile and desktop very nicely. It can be put inside an Electron shell, and it'll run just fine. And then .NET MAUI comes in and says, oh, I can actually also work very nicely with Blazor, because now .NET MAUI and Blazor are the two pillars of .NET going forward, because they run on the same exact runtimes, .NET 6 or .NET 7. So the code sharing story is really, really nice. Right? We will talk about JavaScript as well, but it's not as nice as Blazor, because Blazor and .NET MAUI are just meant to be together. And back to this, back to ASP.NET and APIs. This is this is a newish thing that I'm actually fond of. If you had to write APIs in .NET, you had the full web APIs, which have the controller structures. It's MVC. It's CRUD operations: create, read, update, delete. Just to get a hello world API up, it's just a bit of drama, right? It takes like half a day to install SQL Server and Entity Framework and Visual Studio. Compare that to like Node.js, which writes like 5 lines of code and you have an API. So they want to lower the barrier to entry. Now it is 3 lines of code. It's a little hard to read over the lights, but I'll show you that in code. So this is a nice way to start, and then you can build up from this. You're not forced into this. It's just yet another option. So that's all the things with ASP.NET and Blazor and all the excitement. This is where we're going to spend most of our time. It's called Blazor Hybrid. So Blazor and .NET MAUI run particularly well together compared to Electron, which has 2 things going for it. Electron gives you Node.js, and Electron gives you Chromium as a browser, web view embedded inside of your app. So just a hello world Electron app without anything is about 15 to 20 megs, right? So you are paying a little bit of a price for some deep desktop integrations. Maybe you don't need that. Maybe as a modern user, you can be assured that somebody has a browser, right? And all we care about is just the browser component. Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, they all have modern browsers. Just give us a component, a browser component that can render HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and we are good. So that's how we are bringing in Blazor, and that's also how we can bring in other things like Angular or React. So reusability, I think, is key, because my hope is like .NET MAUI and Blazor together can help us bring stuff from the left over to the right. We can modernize our code bases. As an enterprise, it's hard to just throw away things that your business runs on, right? I love legacy. It's not legacy. It's running your stuff right now. So you can't just throw everything away and just rebuild everything from scratch because .NET MAUI has better code sharing. Ideally, you would want to take like a bite-sized approach. So small fragments of your WinForms or WPF, you can slowly start migrating things over to what's new and happening. All right, so that's it, and we try to help a little bit. You may have heard, or talked to many of us around. Telerik is all about .NET tooling for web, mobile, desktop, and all of the things. And then if you're doing JavaScript, then Candy UI is here for jQuery, Angular, React, and Vue. So we try to help out, and all of this kind of plays out very nicely together. Let's look at some code. Yeah, I did like 7 minutes. Any questions? Any questions so far on MAUI done overall? All right, let's look at some stuff here, okay? And I'm going to jump through a lot of different hoops here, just trying to show you all the options. So let me know if you have any questions. So let's pull up my browser. And let me know. I'm going to keep bumping up the font so all of you can see. So if you have not tried .NET MAUI, this is the best place to start. Start with the docs, and a lot of work has gone in. So they tell you how to get started. You have to have either one of these three things, Visual Studio on Windows or Visual Studio on Mac, get the right workloads, or you can just roll with command line. I'm going to show you some command line as well. And then Visual Studio has come a long way, with tooling and hot reload. It's much, much more productive. So, start here. It has all the things about how you build, dotnet MAUI apps that are cross-platform, how you do platform integrations, and all the things. So let's actually start looking at some stuff here. Let me take you back a little bit to what Xamarin did, and then we'll look at what dotnet MAUI does. All right. So this is a Xamarin Forms app. This is the classic Xamarin Forms app. File new project when you pull this up. This is kind of what you get. I don't have Android. I don't have Windows. I'm just running iOS, so I have taken those out. But you get a .NET standard library, and that's shared. And then you have platform-specific things, which are all separate projects. They have their own dependencies, and they all love to have their own images that are resized to a specific thing, and their fonts, and everything is separate. So it doesn't make it very fun. But this is kind of how the app begins. You have a main page, which is your first view, and then you have some hooks into the application lifecycle. Everything is, it's an abstraction. Like when this is XAML, this is Extended Application Markup Language. We have been hearing this term that you're allergic to XAML, and I get it because I'm old. I'm cool with this, but I understand it's very verbose. You don't have to write XAML if you don't like it at all. But here's kind of the crux of it. Here's an entry, which is essentially a text box, and I want to render a text box. But what if I want to customize my text box? This is how Xamarin Forms used to work. So we would go ahead and customize our text box and make it a background of green, because who doesn't want a green text box, right? So this is how we did it in Xamarin Forms. It's just an extension, and then I can drop my custom entry right in here. So let's go ahead and run this really quickly. I'm going to change on iPhone 13 and hit start. So what you're going to notice is this is a Xamarin app, so it will go talk to Xcode. It's a native app package, and this is way off here. It's a cold start, so it takes a second first up. It's getting a little cut off here at the bottom. There you go. So I got my green text box, right? This is easy. But what if I wanted this to be just for iOS and not for every other platform? So now I can get into the iOS specific folder, and I'm going to turn on this line of code here. What I'm doing here is writing what's called a custom renderer just for iOS. This is how Xamarin Forms used to do it. And for Telerik stuff, like we have written lots and lots of these custom renderers. They're fine, but they're just not for the faint-hearted. You have to know what you're doing at the native stack. This one here, I'm going into UI color, which is coming directly from iOS. That's a AppKit thing that I'm using. So I can change the RGB. Now this would only work for iOS and not for Android. So let's run the same app one more time. I actually don't know what that RGB looks like, but we'll find out soon. It is, let's see, I think it was pink or purple. Yeah, so you get like a different color text box. Now, the same app will run on Android and show you a green one. So what is wrong with this? Well, nothing terrible, but this line of code is bad because what it's doing is leading to what's called like assembly scanning. So at runtime, it needs to realize that, oh, I'm running on iOS. Let me just swap over that assembly and give you a different renderer. It just kind of slows down a little bit performance-wise. But this is Xamarin Forms as we know it right now. But compare this to what dotnet MAUI looks like from the get-go. So let's actually pull up terminal just to kind of show you folks how it looks like. Is that visible? All right, I'm going to stay in this project. That's where most of my stuff is. Oh, nope, sorry. I wanted to do ls. Where am I? All right, there it is. So let's go to MAUI hello, maybe. Yeah, and I'm going to do code dot. This is VS Code, right? I have it on my environment variable, so I can just launch it. So this is what dotnet MAUI app looks like now. Compared to Xamarin Forms, it is literally a single project. Your CS proj is SDK style, much more simpler. And this is the best part. It's a single project with some shared resources. So all of your app icons, your fonts, your images, your splash screens, they're all now shared between iOS and Android and Windows and Mac. They do some magic to resize the things from an SVG, ideally, into all the platforms. So it's nice and shared. Every platform does get a folder here. Android, iOS, Mac, Tizen. Anyone know what Tizen? That's Samsung's thing. Your fridge or your watch, if it's not running Gear or Android, then it's running Tizen. Same with your refrigerator. So you can run .NET MAUI on your fridge, because why not? So all of the platforms get their own specific folder, not a full-on project. They don't have their own dependencies. And if you wanted to do some platform-specific thing, that's where you will end up doing. But everything is really simple. Maui program.cs is how things start off. And this is using the .NET generic host builder, just the way Blazor uses it. So it's really nice and simple now. And what else? Oh, I wanted to show you the customization thing, because that's where we began. So hold on. We're going to go into, let's go cd Maui. What is it? Customization is what we call. You don't have to do command line. I'm just weird. So let me show you that. I will show you Visual Studio on both Windows and Mac. All right, so now we have a .NET MAUI project. And in here, you will notice that what I'm trying to do here in mainpage.xaml, I still have the same entry. But if I go into my app XAML where my app is being bootstrapped, I can directly have a compiler directive right here that says, if I'm on iOS, I can go directly down to UI kit and make myself a green text box, right? So it's just much more easier. I don't have to write a custom renderer for it. It's just right there for me. And I can do this for Android and other things. So let's go ahead and run this really quick. So I'm going to run this from command line just to kind of show you that we have those commands ready for you to run. So let's do, that's Mac Catalyst build. Can I get an iOS build? I have to go away. Oh, there it was, iOS. So .NET build -t run. I'm using a named runtime, and I'm saying go run this on iOS. It's going to build an app bundle and come back and launch it on my iOS simulator, just to kind of show you what was different between Xamarin Forms and Maui. So it should come up, and the default simulator always ends up being like the iPad, which you can actually change to whichever simulator that you would like to work on. Oh, this one actually is the white one. So this is the other demo I was trying to get to it, but it launched the first time. That's fine. But what it's trying to launch is it did not actually show me the green one, which is this one here, right? Because what I did was in my Maui program, which is where the app starts up, I also have this concept of handlers, and I can say, no, if you are on iOS, I actually don't want a green text box. I have investments in Xamarin Forms. I have custom renderers that I've written over time. I would like to go back and reuse one of my custom renderers or the Xamarin Forms renderers. In this case, it's just using the Xamarin Forms renderer. So all of your custom renderers that you have from the past, they can just come right over to .NET MAUI. There is, in fact, a tool, and Swiki was here, who is actually working on this. This is called the .NET Upgrade Assistant. It's a command line tool that will take your WinForms and WPF apps and make them run on .NET 6. So this thing is really nice. And if I go down here, it does actually now say, hey, we can do Xamarin Forms to Maui. So if you have any investments in Xamarin Forms, they can move over to Maui relatively easier, change up some namespaces, clean up the project, and you're up and running. All right. I am very late on time. Let's talk about more things here. Let's talk about Blazor and Maui, right? Because that's the exciting stuff. So let's go back here, clear our screen. And where are we? Let's start with this. Anyone do Blazor? Anyone do Blazor of any type? Oh, there you go. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to pull this up and run this on iOS again. So this is .NET MAUI. The first one was just pure .NET MAUI. This one is .NET MAUI with Blazor. And the only thing that's different here is they're wanting you to consider sharing some code between web and desktop. So you get Blazor that's kind of inbuilt inside of your .NET MAUI project. So this is Maui program.cs, and all it does is bring in this web view. we're going to spend the rest of the 20 minutes on web view, because that is a very interesting control. It's an interesting abstraction that enables a lot of these things. So when I run this let's just run this on iOS. Let's do iOS build. So what it has while it's booting up is all of the things that you're used to in a Blazor project, the pages, the Razor components, the routing, the HTML, CSS, it's all brought in, and it's now inside of your .NET MAUI app, so it launches very nicely. And it looks and feels just like a .NET MAUI app, or just like a Blazor app. So let's go back here. So that's my iOS simulator, now running Blazor. So if you have done any Blazor, this looks familiar, right? This is just the Hello World Blazor experience, now inside iPad or desktop or whatever you want. And this is the best part. I can actually pull up. The one thing that all web developers swear by is developer tools, right? You might be using Angular, React, whatever. Everybody likes to tinker with CSS and HTML on the dev tools. So I can go in here, and this is the Apple ecosystem. The beauty of it is I'm on Safari, and it actually sees my iPad Air right there. So I can close that down, and that's my app. So I can pull up the web inspector. I can pull up all of the elements. I can choose things from inside my Blazor app running inside of .NET MAUI and change my HTML, change my CSS and JavaScript. So just the way we write web apps, you can do that for native apps now, which is really nice. All right, let's look at a few more things here. I think this is nice, but it's not very realistic. So let me show you what I was thinking when I say that. For folks who are already doing Blazor, we're trying to invite Blazor developers to now be native developers on iOS or Android. But I mean, if you are doing Blazor already, it's kind of unrealistic to bring everything Blazor into a single new .NET MAUI project. You still want to support your web stuff, right? So this is where you can actually share code really nicely with Blazor and MAUI. So here is, and you actually don't have a custom Visual Studio template that does this for you, but there's nothing stopping you. So I'm naming this Blazor everywhere because what I'm trying to do is have Blazor and MAUI all together in a single project, right? So all of these things that say Blazor for web are Blazor for web, right? So this is a Blazor WebAssembly project. This is the optional hosted ASP.NET server, and then a shared thing, which is sharing your models or your validations between client and server. It doesn't need to be WebAssembly. It could be Blazor for server side as well. So that's my Blazor for web project, and then I have my .NET MAUI project. What I want to do is between the native and the web stuff, I want to pull out the things that are Blazor specific that I want to share. So I don't have my routing and my components in two places. I just want them to have be in one place. So if you look at my Blazor for native, and actually had the other code base still open, this is the Blazor as you get from the MAUI templates. It has the pages. It has the Razor pages right inside of .NET MAUI. It has www.root. It has shared resources, which is all of the layouts and all those things. These are meant to be inside of .NET MAUI project, but we can actually pull them right outside. So if you notice, this one here does not actually have pages or anything shared. Even the Blazor that is meant to be client-side does not have pages, any components whatsoever, because those I need to be in a separate project. This is the Razor class library, so I can keep all of my pages and all of my shared stuff tucked away in a different project. And that project is just referenced from both my web project and my native project. That makes sense? So I'm just ripping out the things that are shared. So if I look at the the native project here and my dependencies, let's look at iOS here. So you have your project NuGet dependencies and then project ones. You see that? That's just reference inside of my Blazor project. With that, I can actually share a lot more code and make this very nice. So this is my Blazor for web. It's just importing those libraries, and then my index layout, index HTML in Blazor just needs to point to where I'm going to grab the common things. So that's where I pointed to. Instead of getting it from the Blazor project itself, get it from the shared UI project. Right, so let's actually run this just to see how this is. So I'm going to turn this into the startup project, the web one, and we're going to fire this up. So envision you having a Blazor project, and now you want to see that working on mobile and desktop. You don't have to create a whole other project. Just bring that MAUI project inside of your Blazor solution itself. So it is running, I think. Yeah, let's see. It did say, oh, I did a build. Oh, no, it is running. Okay, hold on. So I'm going to go up here. I think it's 5,000 is where it runs. Yeah, so Blazor, as you expect, for the web, right? I didn't have to move it into a MAUI project, but now it's running. And it's saying, hey, I'm running on the browser. These are my window dimensions. That window dimensions, by the way, is coming from JavaScript. So Blazor actually has a JavaScript interop, so they can talk to each other very nicely. But I can now, with my shared UI code base, I can do very shared things here. So let's go to my native project. I'm going to make that the startup. But since everything is shared, I can come out here to, let's say, index.razor. Instead of hello world, I can say hello, DevReach, and I can save that. And I also have a, app level CSS that I can share. So this is likely the button that, gives you that, the Blazor click counter, right? So I can come in here, I can comment that out, and let's just, you're not seeing me type CSS because I'm bad, but I'm just going to make that one line of code change. Let's make that. Ooh, that's not a semicolon, is it? All right, let's make that red, right? Because why not? So with that line of change, I can now launch my native project. And it is already the startup, so I can now run this on my Mac, on my iOS or Android. So, but since it is shared, my code changes will have an impact on my web app and my native app all together, which is really nice because I really have my CSS and HTML shared and my Blazor components shared between web and desktop and mobile. So you get a native Mac desktop application now, same Blazor everywhere, but you'll notice that I'm now running on Mac Catalyst instead of browser because it can detect that I'm on a Mac. I'm a native app now. The window dimensions are so much easier because you're native. I can just ask the .NET APIs. And here's my counter. I made that instead of the blue, I got the red counter. So truly shared styles and shared resources between web and mobile and desktop. All right, let's look at a little bit more fun stuff. Anyone do any JavaScript? I like this. It's like, I do JavaScript, but maybe yeah. Bless you. Let's look at something else here. Let's look at MAUI with Angular. And let's pull this up. Because it's kind of rude to say, let's just do Blazor and not do JavaScript, right? So what am I trying to do here? The name kind of gives it away, MAUI with Angular. So this is the exact same .NET MAUI project that we saw with Blazor together, Blazor embedded in it. But this little guy here, for those of you who hate XAML, this is all the XAML you ever need to see and never actually open this file. But you have to let MAUI bootstrap itself, and then you're off to Blazor land or whatever land you're on. This little guy here, Blazor Web View, is actually a very smart UI. It is just giving you a web view component from Safari, from Chrome, from Edge, whichever platform that you're running on, and then it does not care. It's called Blazor Web View. It's got nothing to do with Blazor. It's Microsoft. They want you to do Blazor, but if you have investments in other things, it'll be happy to do all of that. So what I have here is an Angular CLI project. So let me take you there. So here is my command CLI projects. This is Angular CLI. For those of you who do Angular, I can write my entire app here in TypeScript and HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and I can do an ng build, and then I have my Angular stuff that is now ready for deployment. This is flattened, minified Angular stuff. I can put this on Amazon or Azure, wherever I want. It's my Angular app, right? I can take all of those files, and I can just drop them right here in my .NET MAUI app, right? You see the main polyfill runtime, it's all there. This is the index HTML that Blazor would like to use, but we actually don't want to use that. I want to use the Angular index HTML. Index HTML is how it, the app starts up. So this is where like Blazor renders all of its, this div tag is where Blazor renders. This is the index HTML that Angular has, including all of its script references. I'm just dropping that stuff right in here. And it does not care. So let's run this on Mac Catalyst. Mac Catalyst, there you go. And if you have questions, I'm watching my time here. I will be around all throughout the evening. So out comes an Angular CLI app that's just now running on desktop, right? And it's very natural for Blazor and .NET MAUI to talk to each other, but JavaScript can also talk to .NET. So all of the APIs that Blazor uses, you can use those same APIs from Angular, from React, and other things. So since we did show you Angular, it's kind of rude to not show the other side. So let's do MAUI with React. And I'm not going to pull up the code base. I'm just going to run this. But I'm doing the exact same thing. It's like npx create and then ng or npm start, and then you get a default hello world React app running entirely inside of a shell. Electron does this too as well. This is not new to .NET MAUI, but Electron can be a little heavy-handed. So this is just much more lighter. It's just using a web view, so it's easier. And let me show you one more thing here. If I can go over to how much time do I have? Ooh, 3 minutes, right? That's rough. So let's go over to, let's look at Blazor with some more things. Things called native. No, hold on. I cannot remember. Blazor, native, MAUI native Blazor. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you. It's one thing to say Blazor is welcome on desktop and mobile, but what type of welcome are we talking about? Can we do all the things that we do from .NET inside of a Blazor app? So this is Blazor running inside of MAUI, not Angular, but right in here from my index.razor, which is very much a Blazor component that I'm writing, I can do all types of native things. So let's run this real quick. I will actually run this on iOS because I want to use some APIs. So let's run this on iOS. It is complaining, oh, provisioning profile, okay. All right, hold on for a second. It's not finding a provisioning profile and complaining about that. Interesting. It should find my provisioning profile. All right, we'll come back to this. What I was trying to show you is from my Blazor app right inside here, I can tap into all of the device APIs. Like I can show you what the orientation is of my iPad, or what my height and width is. What type of connectivity does my app have, all from inside of Blazor, because I can read into network access. I have what's called MAUI Essentials, which is a set of like 40, 50 plus APIs all built right inside of .NET MAUI, and I can do that all day from my Blazor code. I can do special permissions, like I can read into your photo library. I can launch your camera. I can do all of that. This is me reading the geolocation. It's just one line of code. It's just C# code. Blazor and .NET MAUI, they both do C# code. This is tapping into secure storage, so I can write things with keychain into the file system from Blazor, which is meant for web. So really nice story. Let's show you. We're at time, but let's do 2 more minutes, if I may, just to show you a couple of things on the Windows side of things. We talked about WPF and WinForms a little bit. Let's see if I can show you that real quick. So let's do this. Hey, Purnima. You are seeing me rush through because we started late, so I'm borrowing 2 minutes trying to show the last things off here. Any questions while this is loading up? Any questions? All right, this is a WPF app, all right? Everything that we saw with the Blazor web view, if you are on Windows, you don't have to use the web view, because there is this thing called Web View 2, which is essentially the edge web view. That's what Blazor Web View renders on Windows. So if I run this, this is a WPF app actually. All I'm doing is just pointing to a URL, and it's loading up all types of web content. So this might be the lowest hanging fruit, may not be the most useful thing, but you can actually take more bite-sized pieces out of this if you wanted to get in. Let's do a Blazor web view now. Still WPF or still WinForms. I can take a little bit of web UI and just inject that inside of my Windows desktop apps, and that way I can slowly migrate. I can slowly modernize my stack. So this is still a WPF app, and what you'll notice here is I have dropped a Blazor component right inside my WinForms or WPF app, and I have not brought over anything else. So when I run this, it doesn't look like anything web because it doesn't have any styles to it. So this might be the very last thing I show you. It's launching. And this is the counter.razor. It is exactly the type of razor component you see for the web, except now it's inside of Windows desktop application. It's going to take a while, maybe. Or restoring NuGet packages. It's Thursday, or it's Wednesday for Visual Studio as well. Maybe. Last thing. Build succeeded. Oh, all right, there you go. So this is a Blazor component, just the way you expect on the web. It's just missing any style, so it doesn't look like a web app, because now it's just inside of a desktop app. So what I'm trying to say is that web view is really, really nice, because it lets you embed just about anything web inside of your desktop or your mobile apps. And you can bring in .NET, which is the more natural thing to do with Blazor, but JavaScript is also welcome too. And that way you have all the platform API access that you need on desktop and mobile, and still have all of your web stuff that's nicely shared, that's running your web apps just anyways, just now welcome on desktop and mobile. All right, I am way over, but I will stick around if you have any questions. Hopefully you can see that we have all the tools in the world to go make a difference. Let's go change the world. And this is me. If you need to get hold of any of this or the code or the slides, that's where you can find me everywhere on the internet. But thank you for spending an hour with me. I appreciate you all, and have a good rest of your day. All right.